In the early 2000s, the internet was evolving at a rapid pace. People were no longer satisfied with just browsing static web pages. They wanted to connect, share, and express themselves online. The concept of social media as we know it today was still in its infancy. There was no Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram. But then came MySpace, a platform that would redefine online interaction and create a digital revolution. For millions, MySpace wasn't just a website, it was an identity. A place where users could customize their profiles, choose their favorite songs, and display their personality through backgrounds and layouts. It became the largest social network in the world, surpassing even Google in traffic. By 2006, it had over 100 million active users, with celebrities, musicians, and everyday people flocking to the platform. MySpace was the beating heart of the internet. But in just a few years, everything changed. The company that dominated social networking was suddenly irrelevant. The platform that once defined an era was abandoned. The social media empire that seemed unstoppable had completely collapsed. How does a company go from being the most visited website in the world to fading into obscurity? How does a platform with a loyal user base, cultural relevance, and corporate backing lose everything in the span of a few years? To understand what went wrong, we need to go back to 2003, when MySpace was born. It all started with a group of entrepreneurs, including Tom Anderson and Chris DeWolf, who saw an opportunity in the rise of early social networking. At the time, a small site called Friendster had gained popularity, offering users a way to create online profiles and connect with friends. But Friendster had major limitations. It was slow, buggy, and lacked customization options. Users wanted more control, more personality, more freedom. Tom and Chris saw this as an opening. They built a faster, more flexible platform, giving users the ability to fully personalize their pages. Custom backgrounds, embedded music, unique layouts. It was unlike anything the internet had seen before. MySpace wasn't just about connecting with friends, it was about expressing yourself. And that made all the difference. The platform exploded in popularity. By 2004, MySpace was growing at a rate no one could have predicted. Millions of users signed up, and the platform quickly became the go-to place for teenagers and young adults. The famous Top 8 Friends list became a status symbol, while musicians and bands saw MySpace as a revolutionary tool to promote their music. For independent artists, it was a game changer, a way to reach audiences without the need for record labels or radio airplay. With such explosive growth, corporate giants took notice, and that's when things started to change. In 2005, Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation, the parent company of Fox News, made a bold move. It acquired MySpace for $580 million. The idea was simple. With News Corp's resources and expertise, MySpace would continue growing and cement itself as the future of social media. At first, the deal seemed like a massive success. MySpace continued attracting millions of users, and advertisers lined up eager to reach this massive audience. But behind the scenes, trouble was brewing. News Corp treated MySpace like a traditional media business, focusing more on advertising revenue than user experience. The platform became cluttered with aggressive ads, slow loading speeds, and corporate interference. Users, once passionate about the site, started noticing the decline in quality. Meanwhile, in a Harvard dorm room, a 19-year-old named Mark Zuckerberg was working on a project that would change everything. Facebook was different. It was cleaner, simpler, and more structured. It focused on real identities and deeper connections rather than just flashy profile pages. Slowly but surely, people began leaving MySpace, not all at once, but gradually, one by one. What happened? Next would become one of the greatest business collapses in internet history. At first, MySpace didn't see Facebook as a real threat. The platform was still growing rapidly, and its dominance in social media seemed secure. Advertisers were pouring money into the site, celebrities were promoting their profiles, and millions of users logged in daily. But beneath the surface, cracks were starting to form. Unlike MySpace, which was built on flashy customization and chaotic user-generated layouts, Facebook had a cleaner, more structured design. It wasn't just a social network, it was a networking tool. Instead of allowing users to create cluttered pages filled with music players, background images, and widgets, Facebook focused on simplicity, efficiency, and real-world connections. At first, Facebook was only available to college students. This exclusivity gave it an aura of prestige, making people want to be part of it. Meanwhile, MySpace was open to everyone, and that led to an increasing problem: spam and fake profiles. The site became flooded with bot accounts, scam links, and unmoderated content, which drove away serious users. At the same time, Facebook was growing organically, expanding from Ivy League schools to universities across the world. By the time it opened to the public in 2006, it had already built a reputation as the smarter, more sophisticated alternative to MySpace, and users were taking notice. Meanwhile, MySpace was making one critical mistake after another. The corporate leadership at News Corp focused on short-term profits, flooding the platform with aggressive advertising. Pages became slow, unresponsive, and overloaded with banner ads, frustrating users. The very thing that had made MySpace great, freedom and customization, was now ruining the experience. Facebook, on the other hand, had no ads in its early days. It was fast, efficient, and focused on user experience. Slowly but surely, people started leaving MySpace. Not all at once, but gradually. Celebrities who once made MySpace the center of their online presence moved to Facebook and Twitter. Musicians, once dependent on MySpace for fan engagement, shifted to YouTube and Spotify. The platform that once set the rules for social media was now being left behind. As Facebook's user base grew, it became clear that MySpace wasn't adapting fast enough. The company still had millions of users, but engagement was dropping. People weren't spending as much time on the site, and advertisers were noticing. By 2009, Facebook had officially surpassed MySpace in active users. What had once been the king of social media was now falling apart. The leadership at News Corp realized the problem too late. In an attempt to rebrand and modernize, MySpace went through multiple redesigns trying to imitate Facebook's sleek minimalist approach. But the damage had already been done. People had already moved on. Facebook wasn't just a social network anymore. It was becoming a necessity in everyday life. Meanwhile, MySpace felt like an outdated relic of the past, a platform stuck in time. By the time the company realized what was happening, the downfall was already inevitable. By the time MySpace realized it was losing the social media war, Facebook had already cemented itself as the dominant platform. The shift wasn't just about user preference. It was about how people wanted to connect online. MySpace had built its brand on individual expression and entertainment, but Facebook offered something even more powerful: real-world networking, simplicity, and trust. As MySpace struggled to regain relevance, internal conflicts and poor decision-making accelerated its decline. The leadership at News Corp, more focused on monetization than innovation, failed to understand why users were abandoning the platform. Instead of improving the user experience, they doubled down on aggressive advertising, making the site slower and less enjoyable. Meanwhile, Facebook continued to evolve. It introduced new features like the newsfeed, photo tagging, and later, the like button, all of which encouraged users to stay engaged longer. Unlike MySpace, which allowed anyone to create an account and flood the site with fake profiles and spam, Facebook required real names and verified connections, creating a sense of credibility and community. By 2010, MySpace had undergone multiple redesigns, each one attempting to recapture lost users. They tried everything, from integrating with Twitter and YouTube to launching MySpace Music, a last-ditch effort to reclaim its influence in the entertainment industry. But none of these efforts could stop the decline. Users weren't just leaving MySpace, they were actively avoiding it. The site became known for glitches, outdated design, and an overwhelming number of ads. While Facebook felt modern and intuitive, MySpace felt stagnant and chaotic. The numbers told the story. In 2008, MySpace had nearly 75 million users in the US. By 2011, that number had dropped to just 34 million. In just 3 years, half of its user base had disappeared. Recognizing the inevitable, News Corp decided to cut its losses. In 2011, the company sold MySpace for just $35 million, a humiliating fraction of the $580 million they had paid for it just a few years earlier. But MySpace's downfall wasn't just about Facebook being better. It was a cautionary tale about what happens when a company fails to listen to its users, prioritizes profits over experience, and refuses to evolve. MySpace didn't just lose a battle, it lost an entire generation of internet users. As a new beginning, a chance to rebuild MySpace into a hub for music and entertainment. But the reality was far less optimistic. The platform's reputation was shattered. Users had already moved on to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, leaving MySpace in a downward spiral. Even though the new owners attempted a major rebranding effort, launching a redesigned interface and focusing on music discovery, they failed to address the real issue. MySpace no longer fit into the evolving social media landscape. Meanwhile, Facebook continued to expand its influence. Mark Zuckerberg's team perfected the user experience, integrating mobile apps, data analytics, and social advertising in ways MySpace had never managed to do. Facebook was no longer just a platform for social networking. It had become a digital ecosystem embedded in people's daily lives. MySpace's attempts at reinvention were too little, too late. The company faced 3 major problems that prevented a true comeback. Loss of user trust. MySpace had become associated with spam, slow performance, and a cluttered interface. Even with a new design, people saw it as outdated and unreliable. Irrelevant business model. Unlike Facebook, which evolved into an advertising powerhouse, MySpace remained stuck in an old media mindset, failing to fully embrace mobile technology and real-time engagement. Too much competition. By the time MySpace tried to pivot to music, platforms like Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube had already taken over that space. The music industry had changed and MySpace was no longer needed. The once mighty social network had been reduced to a niche platform, a shadow of what it once was. Attempts to attract independent artists and revive its presence in the music scene never gained real traction. The tech world had moved on, and MySpace was now a symbol of digital decline. Facebook, on the other hand, was on a completely different trajectory. It acquired Instagram, launched Messenger, expanded into AI and VR, and built one of the most powerful advertising platforms in the world. What MySpace failed to do, evolve and anticipate user needs, Facebook mastered with precision. The death of MySpace wasn't just about bad leadership or one bad decision. It was about failing to adapt. In the fast-moving world of technology, standing still is the same as moving backward. MySpace didn't just lose to Facebook, it lost to the future. The collapse of MySpace was more than just a business failure. It was a lesson in how quickly dominance can turn into irrelevance in the tech world. At its peak, MySpace had more traffic than Google. It was the center of internet culture, shaping how people connected online. But by 2012, it was barely a footnote in the history of social media. After being sold to Specific Media Group and Justin Timberlake, MySpace attempted a final reinvention. The new owners wanted to transform it into a music-driven platform, capitalizing on its past success with independent artists and bands. The redesigned interface was sleek, focusing on music discovery, curated playlists, and exclusive content. But there was one major problem. The internet had already moved on. The new MySpace faced an overwhelmingly competitive landscape. Platforms like Spotify and SoundCloud had taken over online music streaming, while Facebook and Twitter dominated social networking. YouTube had become the new home for musicians, offering a global reach that MySpace could no longer provide. Even TikTok, which had yet to explode, was already showing signs of becoming the next major player in online entertainment. MySpace's attempts to lure users back failed to generate excitement. The rebranded platform launched with millions of old user accounts deleted, erasing years of nostalgia and memories for former MySpace users. Instead of feeling like a revival, it felt like a completely different platform, disconnected from what had made MySpace special in the first place. Meanwhile, Facebook was on a historic rise. Mark Zuckerberg's company had surpassed 1 billion users, expanded its advertising empire, and acquired Instagram and WhatsApp, solidifying its position as the social media giant of the modern era. While MySpace struggled to regain relevance, Facebook was actively shaping the future of the internet. By the late 2010s, MySpace had become a digital ghost town. The company still existed, but it had lost all cultural influence. The platform that once defined online interaction was now a relic of the past, known more for its failure than for its success. The story of MySpace is a powerful reminder that, in the tech industry, being first isn't enough. The companies that survive are the ones that adapt, innovate, and anticipate change. MySpace had the advantage, the audience, and the brand recognition, but it lacked the vision to evolve. Today, MySpace still technically exists, but it's nothing more than a niche music site with a fraction of its former glory. The rise and fall of MySpace isn't just about a failed social network. It's about how arrogance, corporate greed, and a refusal to adapt can destroy even the most dominant companies. The decline of MySpace was not just the fall of a company, it was the end of an era. A platform that had once defined social media, shaped online culture, and revolutionized digital interaction was now little more than a forgotten relic of the past. After failing to regain its relevance in the social media space, MySpace was left with only one option: reinvent itself once again. But this time there was no major comeback, no resurgence, no rebirth. Instead of competing with Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, MySpace retreated into obscurity, repositioning itself as a music-focused platform. It became a space for underground artists and independent musicians, trying to carve out a niche in the online music industry. But the competition was too strong. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and SoundCloud had already taken over, leaving little room for MySpace to thrive. The company, once worth billions, now had no real influence in the industry it had helped create. Even its loyal user base had disappeared. The MySpace of the mid-2000s was gone, and with it the cultural impact it had once held. The biggest lesson from MySpace's downfall is simple: no company, no matter how dominant, is untouchable. In the world of technology, standing still means falling behind. MySpace was a pioneer, but it failed to evolve. It prioritized short-term profits over user experience. It underestimated the power of innovation, and in doing so, it lost everything. Meanwhile, Facebook continued to expand, acquiring Instagram, WhatsApp, and Oculus, securing its place as the leader of social networking. While MySpace was stuck in the past, Facebook was building the future. Today, MySpace still exists, but it's barely recognizable. It has no significant influence in social media, no major presence in music, and no path back to relevance. It serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that success in tech is never permanent. The story of MySpace is not just about the rise and fall of a company. It's about how quickly the digital world can change. One moment, you're at the top. The next, you're forgotten. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the collapse of one of the internet's biggest giants, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share it. There are many more shocking stories of business empires that fell from greatness, and you won't want to miss what's next. Also, check out our playlist of corporate collapses, where we uncover the hidden details behind the biggest financial and strategic disasters in history.